You guys have seen the show Indian Matchmaker. I'm sure you have. So today I have a special treat for you guys. I want to introduce someone who is an Indian matchmaker.
But sometimes a guy who's a great boyfriend may not be a great husband, or the other way around.
Ooh, that's a quote right there. A great boyfriend is not always a great husband.
May not be.
May not be. And then I'm assuming a great girlfriend doesn't always reflect that they're going to be a great wife.
People kept saying, there's so many divorces in the US and, we have fewer divorces in India. But then I said, unless we do a real study on it, we don't know how many people are, happy necessarily in an arrangement.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you said that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Introspect Club, a club where you can learn a lot about yourself through conversations with other people. My name is Jeff Damisse, and I'll be your host. Where do we begin? We're back for another excellent episode, and I want to talk about something that's a little bit unique. We know about relationships in the Western world. We know exactly what it's like to date or to find courtship in our environment today. Imagine a world where you don't really have the same typical courtship processes that you typically go through. Imagine a world where you wake up one day and you're said you're going to be married in such and such days, but you haven't even met the person. You haven't had a chance to date them. You haven't had a chance to have cute little conversations on the phone. None of that. Okay, imagine a world, and we're not talking about a TV show, we're talking about real life here. There are certain cultures where having these long, extraneous dating processes where you're dating for 2 years, 3 years before you get married to someone is not even really a thing. It's kind of almost frowned upon because culturally, some people believe in having matchmakers match you up strictly to get married, or your parents match you up. You guys have seen the show Indian Matchmaker. I'm sure you have. So today I have a special treat for you guys. I want to introduce someone who is an Indian matchmaker, someone who's very professional in this space, someone who has a lot of experience matching up people of a particular culture together in a realm of getting married. No funny business, just straight up, you're a match, you guys are getting married. So without further ado, I want to introduce my next guest, Anu Ganesh, the Indian matchmaker. What's up? How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you, Jeff, for this opportunity.
Thank you for being on the show. I want you to give yourself a quick introduction so that way everybody can get familiar with you and what you do.
Sure, Jeff. So I'm Anu Ganesh. I'm an Indian matchmaker. I work for a company called Banyan Way. We are a modern matchmaking platform based in the USA, focusing on Indian singles living here. So we help them find relevant matches according to their preferences. And we have a great time doing that. And I'm happy to tell you more about it as the interview goes along.
Right on. Right on. So you're an Indian matchmaker, right? And I have a lot of questions for you because I'm very fascinated about the culture and the idea of someone setting you up and saying, this is a person you're going to marry. And it's almost decided for you. And I understand that there's levels to how this happens. It doesn't always happen so instantaneously, but I want to focus on the scenarios where it does happen instantaneously, right? So
sure.
As an Indian matchmaker, who do you typically serve? Is it mostly people that are in the US or in the eastern part of the world?
So as an Indian matchmaker based in the US, we help any person any single of Indian origin who lives here currently. So it doesn't matter if they were married before or it's their first marriage or basically anyone who's looking for a match, for a long-term commitment. So that's who we help.
So when you match these people, are they saying to you like, I'm looking to find somebody to marry? Is that what they're saying? Or they're just saying, I'm just trying to get to know someone? Like what's the discussion?
So the people who come to us, it could be parents looking for someone for their son or daughter, or it could be the single himself or herself. So when they reach out, why they're coming to a matchmaker is because they want a little more help in finding the person who would, um, suit their personality, someone they're looking for a long-term commitment with. Yes, marriage is ultimate goal, but sometimes just being in a long-term steady relationship is something that they're looking for. And they want a little extra help with that.
So the ones that are looking for marriage, right? What is it about the Indian pursuit of a partner that requires a specific Indian matchmaker? What is the difference in that pursuit compared to the typical Western pursuit of a relationship or marriage or anything of that nature?
Sure. So when, let's say, when Indian singles come to us, many of them have already tried being on other dating apps. They may have even worked with a non-Indian matchmaker, but then many of the times they come back to us because they want some cultural relevance. They want someone who had a similar upbringing to them. Maybe if they were born and raised here, they're looking for someone similar to that, but with an Indian culture in the background. So that's why they come to an Indian matchmaker.
Yeah, but is that a press, like, is that a push from their parents or is that the actual singles themselves?
Yes, I mean, some of them it's the parents, but in most of the cases, it's the singles themselves because they realize, I mean, they may have dated non-Indian people as well, but then when they want to settle down, start a family, they're looking for someone who's, similar to them and of a similar background. So, they prefer Indian, most of them. I'm not saying all, but if they're looking for someone of Indian origin, they would come to someone like us.
See, what I find fascinating about that is like, you mentioned that like sometimes it's the parents and sometimes it's, the individuals themselves, right?
Sure. Yes.
But I do think that there's like this overall like cultural push in the Indian culture, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, to when you're settling down, right? There's this idea that how you're going to raise your kids, how you're going to introduce your partner to your family. Because I dated someone who she was Bangladeshi. Am I saying it right?
That's right. Yeah, Bangladeshi. Yes.
Right. We had a great relationship, right? And then when she realized like things were getting, a lot more serious with her and I, she found it really difficult to figure out exactly how she was going to blend the cultures, and it became like a rift in the relationship. And I didn't want to necessarily combat that because I understand you come from a particular culture, but like, is there any part of the relationships that you are cultivating more of a cultural obligation versus an actual love match?
That's a good question. So when people come to us and they're looking for somebody, of course, they always wish to find someone who they can bring home to their parents.
Okay.
So Indian would be ideal because then the parents would, most parents would approve of that, obviously. But when they're looking, they would like to bring the love element in that as well. So when they ask me, make some, suitable introductions for me. So it's not like I, present somebody to them and then they have to decide right away to marry them. They get time, they get introduced to each other. They may go out. I mean, they will talk first, do video calls and then meet each other. But then they are hoping to find that spark, find that love connection before they, decide to say yes. So while it may seem that the parents are pushing them, in many cases, when they want to settle down, this is their decision. So
really,
it's not always that the parents are pushing them.
So if it's their decision, as an Indian matchmaker, you're seeing couples, not couples, but you're seeing individuals make decisions on who they want to be with. But
Mm-hmm.
I imagine if you're matching people in the Western side of the world, right? I'm assuming it's a younger generation compared to the generations from the past in terms of Indian cultures, right? So
Right.
what would you say is the biggest difference between what an Indian single is looking for in a partner today compared to what, let's say, you were looking for or what your elders were looking for in the past? What do you feel like is the difference between those two generations?
I think generally, South Asians put a lot of emphasis on, education and, the previous generation, when my parents were looking for someone for me, I had an arranged marriage.
You had an
So the
arranged
things
marriage.
yes,
Yeah.
I did.
Okay.
So, when they were looking for someone, the things they look for are, education, or is there a cultural match between the families? Is the boy really educated? Is he having a good job? Does he have a close family? Does he, things like that. But
Very
then I see the
pragmatic.
younger generation, very pragmatic,
Yeah.
yes. But then when the younger generation comes to me, of course, those things I wouldn't say are unimportant, but they are not the first priority. The
Okay.
things they are looking for are, Anu, tell me, what are his interests? I would like to know, is he an outdoors person or indoors? Does he like hiking? Does he like going to Broadway shows? Does he like, things like that? They're looking for something similar on a day-to-day basis, not necessarily long-term, like, being settled in a good job and things like that. So, I mean, if that happens too, then, that's a bonus, but that's not the main thing.
So basically this generation is looking for more like social needs rather than the pragmatic needs, right? Which kind of makes sense because we're in an environment where like, a lot of those pragmatic needs are taken care of in so many different ways that the needs that are often overlooked now are the social ones. But I noticed something in your response that I want to ask you about. You mentioned a lot of the things that I feel like a woman is looking for, I would imagine, right? Do you serve both men and women?
Sure, yes. We serve both men and women. And, it's hard to, I don't want to stereotype them, but, overall, I've observed some things about men and some things about women in what they're looking for in a partner.
Really? What is that? I need to know right now. Like what, tell me what is a typical Indian man and an Indian woman separately are looking for that might differ from each other?
Jeff wants to know the secret sauce.
I want to know the secret sauce and I want to sprinkle it on my, on my dish.
Okay. So, overall, most of the women, Indian women, I think they're looking for someone sort of close to their age, not much older to them. Someone who, someone who's passionate about their career. It doesn't mean that, they have to have had a master's degree or, they have to be working in a multinational corporation necessarily, but they want someone whose job means a lot to them. It's just not a job, but, it's like a passion in their life, passion in their life. So they want to see that.
Okay.
They want to see a guy who thinks independently. It's nice to have find a guy who's close to his family, but can he think independently as well?
Right.
That would be great. So these are the things, and women are also looking. I mean, this might be common for men and women, but they're also looking for someone who's, respectful of their partner's needs. Are they, for example, a woman is in a really high position in her career. Is a man able to respect her for that? And, is there a mutual respect going on there? So that is common to both. In terms of men, I think definitely I would say that most of the men who come to me are, even more focused on bringing someone acceptable to their family. So that's not necessarily a bad thing. So they're looking for someone, who they can bring home, who would adjust. Adjust as, let's say, who fits in the family. Let's put it that way.
What's considered a fit in the family? Because that can mean different things, right? Is that like a reflection of what a woman does for or with the family? Is it a reflection of what she looks like, how she dressed? Is it a reflection of like the type of parenting that she received? Like what stands as a priority for the guys?
I think what stands as a priority is someone, who keeps the family together. They say in Indian families, when you get married, families are literally getting married to each other.
Right.
It's not only the guy and girl.
Yeah.
So, so
Wow.
he must be looking for someone, who will keep the family together. And it's not that they're going to stay with his parents necessarily, but just encouraging the interaction between family members, and because this will all reflect, when you're thinking about the next generation, when they're going to have children. So they are looking for someone who would have, just like his parents did, bring everybody together.
Mm-hmm.
Whether his spouse would be open to that. So to give you an example, let's say there are two women and a guy is, talking to both, let's say, and there's one person who's mainly focusing on the relationship with him. And while the other person wants to get to know his family as well, the obvious choice would be he would like to talk more to the girl who's also open to, interacting with his family. So I think that is an important difference.
So what about like physical attraction? How much does that play between both men and women?
Oh, yes, you would. I mean, of course, everyone would like to find someone who they're attracted to. But then it depends on their age as well. I wouldn't say just men, differentiate between men and women. When you start dating, let's say in your early 20s, your physical attraction and looks are much more important to you. So that comes right at the top of the list. But then, as you get into your 30s and maybe your 40s, there are other things which, take precedence over that. So you're like, of course, it would be nice if he looks great or she looks great, but what are the other things they bring to the equation? So physical attraction is important, but the way we work is, even if 10 out of 10 things don't match in what you're looking for a partner, even if 7 or 8, we encourage them. So, sometimes, as you know, Jeff, photos can be deceptive. You may not get the real personality of the person just in a photo. So we
sounds
say,
like sounds like every dating app you've ever been on.
Right. So we're like, at least, be open to initial phone call. Maybe nowadays we have technology, do a video call.
Right.
So you can see the other person's facial expressions. What's their body language? Are they looking at you? Are they looking away? How these things are hard to do just on, messaging somebody, right?
Right.
So we encourage them to look beyond. And we do virtual events for singles as well. So when people come there, sometimes they're pleasantly surprised. They might have seen this person on a profile, but then when they actually talk to them, if they see how they interact, how they, present themselves, and they're quite impressed. So
is there any pressure? Is there any pressure for like men, or not men, but for women to maintain like what's reserve when it comes to like their dating experience and sexual experience, when it comes to like what is considered attractive towards the men, or vice versa? Because I know like in the Western world, like, men and women are experiencing multiple partners sometimes at the same time before they can find the person that they are compatible with or that they want to be with. Is there a different pressure for Indian individuals in avoiding that or doing that? I'm not quite sure. I don't want to make any assumptions.
No, I think, Indian singles growing up here have the same, Western experience as their non-Indian counterparts. So,
Okay.
Of course, how open are they with their parents on that? That's depends on the family. In some families, they are discussing, their dating experiences without going to too many details. In other cases, they're waiting till things get really serious before telling their parents. So it depends. But in terms of how open are they with their with potential partners, I've come across women and men who like to be open from the start, and that's acceptable. In some other cases, if let's say this I'm talking when singles are meeting each other.
Yeah.
But let's say parents are there. So if it's a parent-to-parent connection, and then they introduce a son or daughter, they won't be discussing dating history and all necessarily. But
yeah, they're gonna keep those college years like under wraps.
So it's like they leave it to the guy and girl to figure that out, because they're going to be talking with each other. and they'll get to know more about each other. So the parents don't get involved in that.
So,
But
so specifically when it comes to like arranged marriages, right? I know you do a bit of a hybrid, right? But like specifically for arranged marriages, do you feel there are like you said you were part of an arranged marriage to some degree or another, right?
Sure.
Okay. Given what you know now about what it's like to be married as well as being in an arranged marriage, give me an idea of the benefit to arranged marriages and some drawbacks, if you can come up with some.
Sure. So I had an arranged marriage in which, my parents first asked me, do you like somebody? I mean, are you dating anybody? So in that sense, they were quite progressive.
Okay.
I hadn't found anybody like that. So I was open with them, making some introductions. So, so when, in fact, my husband, when I met him in the morning, and by afternoon I had said, I announced to the family, I like him. I would like to marry him. So, I was a little
like that, so, just like is that, yeah, that person. Yeah, we're gonna be in a house together raising kids. I met him this morning. That's how it happened. That's such a shame to like the men in the Western world where they're like, oh, I need a couple years. I need a couple, let's move in together, et cetera, et cetera. And the women that are like putting this pressure. Meanwhile, you're like, yeah, I met him this morning. He's marrying me in the afternoon. Like, that's pretty much what it was.
So my husband still teases me, you put me in a spot, I had to say yes. But
so you proposed ultimately, really?
Yeah. So it was, we were in a room. We had already spoken to each other a couple of hours. We went out and then we came back in the room. My parents, his parents are there. And they were not forcing us to say anything. They were just waiting for us to say anything, So I just took the lead. And you may be, if you're curious what made me decide that, I can share a little.
Go ahead.
Hint to that. So I think, when in an arranged marriage, when you look at that person, you're not already romantically involved with him or her.
Right.
So in a sense, your mind is very clear. You're very practical. You're very pragmatic. So you're looking, so that doesn't, they say love is blind, right? So we are not blinded by anything. So at the same time, I mean, we should like each other. There should be basic liking, it's hard to have an arranged marriage when you don't even like how the person looks.
Right.
Or, so that's hard. But so we know that all the other things that they can care in the sense, the parents are like each other, they know each other, or they've gotten to know each other through common connections. So it's just up to me and him, to decide. So we were discussing things like, we were in India at that time, so he was going to move here for his job. So he asked me, were you open to that? And we were talking things like ahead, we were thinking ahead of, I was looking at him and thinking, this is somebody I would like to be with in 10, 15 years. I wasn't looking at necessarily boyfriend material. I mean, that's nice too. But sometimes a guy who's a great boyfriend may not be a great husband, or the other way around.
Ooh, that's a quote right there. A great boyfriend is not always a great husband.
May not be.
And then I'm assuming a great girlfriend doesn't always reflect that they're going to be a great wife.
Yeah, because, you're looking for different things. I mean, I have a close friend. She was dating this guy in India for 8 years. And then they got married and they got divorced in a year. So I asked her, what went wrong?
Wait, they were hold on. They were dating for how long before they got married?
8 years.
8 years, and then they got married and divorced.
They got divorced within a year. So I asked her, what is different? I mean, I just don't get it, because you spend so much time together. Then she said the same qualities which were attractive to me as a boyfriend. Like, he would be spontaneous. He would suddenly come to her, come to pick her up. He has a bunch of red roses and he's like, come, we are going on a trip. And he was just really spontaneous. So that was really attractive for a girlfriend. But then after they got married, he came home one day, I quit my job. Come, let's go backpacking, So those same things.
Wow.
So those same things were hard for her. She said, I was looking to, have something stable, but he never changed. But I told her, but you knew how he was, right?
Yeah,
She
she knew
said,
she knew
maybe,
what it was. So I don't understand what she was expecting here.
yeah, yeah. It's just like you just think that as soon as you get married, things are going to change. Personalities don't change overnight. You grow together. I mean,
Right.
a little bit of you changes, a little bit of him changes. You grow together. That's the point.
So
But
to your point, you grow together. You're saying the benefit of being married as an arranged marriage is not dealing with the cloud of the emotions, right? It's a pragmatic decision.
right,
You see, do you like this
right.
person on a fundamental level? Do they have the qualities to be a sustainable
Hmm.
person? The end, right?
That that's right.
But like, if you're saying, whether or not you grow together, like how can you guarantee you're gonna grow together in the right direction if you haven't had a chance to really experience the direction the person's going in to see how sustainable they are really, and you're already marrying
Yes,
this person?
yeah, I understand. So see, I think any successful relationship, there's a little of, give and take. I always believe relationships cannot be absolutely equal. Sometimes he takes over, sometimes she takes over. So if in an arranged marriage, both the guy and girl are getting into it, knowing that there are going to be some adjustments that have to be made because you're going to live with a new person, right?
Right.
So you go in with the mindset that, this is something I should work on. It's like a plant, right? If you both water it, then only it's going to grow. So it cannot be one-sided. So
Right.
if the when they both go into arranged marriage, they both are open to the idea that we're going to learn. We have to learn how to live with each other. I'm not saying that people who fall in love with each other won't do that necessarily, but here it's a very pragmatic, practical decision, and you are looking forward to falling in love with each other.
So what are some of the drawbacks to being in an arranged or part of an arranged marriage, given your
I think,
experience?
sure. Part of the drawbacks, I think, culturally, divorce is still frowned upon. I mean, it's still. So I wouldn't want two people who had an arranged marriage to stay together just because they have to. We would,
Okay.
we would never want that for anybody to be unhappy.
Okay.
So sometimes one downside could be that you're just expected to maintain appearances just because you've had it. So
Oh.
we don't want that. Whether it's
But you don't want that, but that happens. Like, so you're saying a lot of arranged marriages, even though they had the best intentions in getting together and being married, when things go wrong, there's a pressure to maintain appearances more so than
yeah,
to work out the differences. Like, how is that what you're saying?
yeah. What I'm saying is, of course, the parents are involved in arranged marriage. So the upside is, the parents could, counsel both of them, find out what's going on. But then, growing up in a Western culture, the singles may not want the involvement of the parents to, in their relationship
Right.
struggles.
Right.
So they would like to sort it out themselves. So while you have the support of the family, there's some stuff you both have to, hash out yourself. So,
But you're
and
saying,
another down,
but the
yeah, go
maintaining
ahead.
of the relationship, not the relationship, but the appearance, is what kind of like sparked an interest to me here. Is like, I like to think that arranged marriages typically last longer than love marriages. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm not aware of, whether there's been any big study on that, but I can say one thing. Um, when I first moved here, people kept saying, "Oh, there's so many divorces in the U.S. and we have fewer divorces in India." But then I said, unless we do a real study on it, we don't know how many people are, happy necessarily in an
That's
arranged marriage.
that.
They may
Okay, I'm
so
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 glad you said that. I'm so
yeah,
glad
so
you
it's
said that.
hard to, yeah. So I wouldn't generalize without knowing the actual data. I don't know if a study has been done, but definitely, uh, whether it's an arranged marriage or a marriage in which you find each other, ultimately there's stuff about each other you're going to find out only after you live with each other. Only, um, after you live together, you may realize, oh, he keeps the toilet seat up, or she keeps a wet towel on the bed. These are things you'll only know after you live with somebody for some time.
I hope
So
that's the
anyway,
if that's the biggest problem, that's a perfect couple. Okay? If that's the biggest problem that they have in a relationship, like I don't think they're gonna have any issues. But like you raise a
I
point,
know.
like even though there's a large population of people who are married from arranged marriages in the Indian culture, there's no real study that shows,
Yeah, we don't
how
know.
how
Yeah.
happy they are or how compatible they really were. So when you arrange people or when you match them, right, and they get married, because I assume you've witnessed a lot of people get married in your profession, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you ever follow up with them weeks, months, or maybe years after they've been married to kind of like gauge how well they work together, given that they probably got married relatively abruptly compared to the Western world?
So when actually most of these marriages don't happen so abruptly. So usually, if they're in, they after I introduce them to each other, they're getting to know each other. That takes some few months. Then they get engaged. So it might take up to a year to get married sometimes.
Right, but that's still
It,
I would say that that's still an arranged
that's
marriage.
okay.
Here's why I would say that, right? Because a lot of couples think about the person you mentioned, right, that was in a relationship for 8 years and then got married, right? There are a lot of couples, especially in the Western world, where you are in a relationship with the person a couple years, few years, whatever the case may be, and then when you get engaged, it's probably like another year process,
Mm-hmm.
right, of the
Right.
engagement, right, before you actually get married. So you
Right.
could be with that person for at least 4 years before you actually get married, depending on the
It's
pace of your
possible. Right.
relationship. But for someone to meet somebody, date them for a few months, get engaged, married within 12 months. To me, I call that
Okay.
arranged marriage or an instant marriage,
Okay.
right? That's just my phrasing. You might call it something else. Compared to the Western world, that is instantaneous.
Sure. So you asked me about follow-up.
Yes.
So this year we have had 5 couples who we introduced who got married. So they were, dating from last year, some of them, and some of them met this year. So while in our matchmaking process, we really don't have a formal follow-up after they get married, but we, out of our, we just like to maintain the relationship. So just like, we recently, because it's COVID, we had to do COVID call. I mean, virtual calls with them. So we did Zoom calls with them so that we could, talk to them about how things were going. And so far, things, look good. And but I think, and I'll take your suggestion on following up with them in a couple of years. I think that would be great. If I can,
I
find
think it
out.
would. What I would hate to happen, right? And again, I'm not the one to speak for this culture or to be its,
Mm-hmm.
representative in any way. But what I would hate to happen is that there's a strong emphasis on the pragmatic aspect of putting people together, and
Right.
there's generations and generations of couples that continue to be miserable in their situation, and they maintain this image for the sake of the family, for the sake of the culture, and meanwhile it might inherently hurt the person internally, emotionally,
I
psychologically,
understand.
because they're not dealing with the issue, right? Because they're so focused on the appearance, right? And I imagine a lot of
But
Indian weddings are this grandiose gesture, right? A lot of investment.
yeah, yeah, Indian weddings, most of them are, pretty grand, and it's a real celebration. I know weddings here are much smaller, more intimate, but Indian weddings are meant to be big,
The whole city.
loud, fun, social, an opportunity to meet all your, extended family, friends. And so when you said about the, in arranged marriages, sometimes people staying together even if they're unhappy. But you may be surprised, how many of the people in arranged marriages fall madly in love with each other once
That's
they,
great.
they're married. So, I mean, uh, so I had an arranged marriage, and then within, a few months of living together, the falling in love is gradual and it's deep, and it's, really the bond is really strong. So, that can So I think, if you see maybe 5, 10 years into a relationship, which was an arranged marriage or otherwise, I think it'd be quite comparable
I'll be
because, you both, I would think so.
I'll be honest with you. Like a part of me would wouldn't mind being in an arranged marriage if I
Hmm.
knew that there was a stronger possibility of finding compatibility from being in a culture that cultivates that type of
Right,
synergy, right? In a Western world,
right.
there's so many people with so many different backgrounds, so many different uh, um, upbringings and ideals that even when you're meeting people, it's a crapshoot, right? You're like, I have no idea how you were
Right.
raised because my culture is definitely going to be different from yours. I can get to
Hmm.
know you and find out if I can blend it together, but I won't know until I get to know you for an extended period of time. Versus in the Indian culture,
Of
there's
course.
probably like a baseline of expectation, right? Are there like a lot more like traditional gender roles and just norms for couples that you don't see in the Western world?
I think, it's a difference of men and women. I mean, I wouldn't say there's some gender roles which women are expected or men, are expected to perform irrespective of the culture. So
Okay.
I think,
Well, I think in the Western
I,
world, it's a little bit more ambiguous for a lot of roles that would have been more traditional in other cultures. But I'm asking you, are there certain gender or cultural norms that don't exist in the Western world that makes it a lot more difficult to find compatibility with some of the clients?
if we think on that, I think first thing is, I think in the Indian culture, the people are looking into getting into a marriage, whether they met someone on their own or they got you know
Got it.
introduced by a matchmaker. They are looking for something long term, like maybe the one and only marriage, hopefully.
Right.
So that's what they're so things like, let's say, prenuptial agreements and all highly frowned upon, because
Ah.
so people are like, why are you talking about that, right when you're getting into marriage?
I mean,
So,
prenups are frowned upon in the Western culture as well, but maybe more so in the
oh
Indian
yeah,
culture.
absolutely,
But do
absolutely.
you ever
And
have like, do you
then
ever have like wealthy clients that are like made of a lot of money? We're talking millions, maybe billions of dollars, and they're seeking a partner, but they want to protect the family assets just as much as anything else. Is that a thing, or are they just like, okay, we're Indian, we don't do prenups?
that kind of client, we haven't met so far.
Okay,
Who has been, extremely wealthy. I mean, many of them may be, but one thing you have to understand our process is, we don't get into the nitty gritty of the actual wedding. So, we introduce them and then they find somebody they want to get married to, engage. But things like, these legal things and all, they decide amongst themselves. So we don't come in that.
so
So,
give me an example of a client that you had to do services for as a
mhm,
matchmaker, as an Indian matchmaker, where it was one of your more challenging clientele.
sure. So there have been a couple. So when someone is challenging, we have to. The first thing is, while it might upset us that why are they being so let's say demanding. So we take a step back and try to understand where that's coming from. you
Okay.
know why are they, because is it because of past experiences, they had really bad experiences, that's what colors their vision, and that's why they're a little more hesitant to open up. Is that a reason? So first thing we do is, if someone comes across as a difficult client, so to speak, so we first try to find out why they're feeling that way. So now coming to actual examples. So we had a client who was living in the Bay Area, California. So she was very particular of finding somebody. Of course, living in California, that's okay because they want someone who's local. And but she would never. Her preferences were that she would want to marry someone who, she was 35, so she was looking for someone maximum 38 or just a few years older to her, and she was looking for someone who was, uh, you know, um, treated women exactly equal to men. That's, I mean, that everyone expects. But she wanted someone who would have, the same. There's no male and female gender roles, and they have to be just like, if he comes early from work, then he's cooking. If she comes early from work, she's cooking. All that is okay. But she was a little. Um, it seemed like, she was a little more. And she was expecting it a little more, like very strictly. She wanted something exactly equitable. So we had
Uh,
it was a little challenging case, because whoever we would present, she would speak to them, and then she would ask these questions just to judge, how what was the gender roles, what were the gender roles in his family. And the
uh-huh.
moment she realized it was a traditional kind of family, it's a no.
So why is he,
So
hold on. So
so
why is she looking for an Indian man? I don't get it. That makes no
um
sense to me, because if she's not looking
yeah,
for anything cultural or traditional in terms of roles, why is she looking for an Indian man?
yeah, she did. Yeah, she did date non-Indians, but she said when it ultimately came to thinking of, starting a family with someone, she wanted someone who's Indian.
I know,
But
but
then,
why? Why? I need to know why.
why? Because I think she, in spite of being, a strong, independent woman, she wanted someone who her parents would accept and who they would be. See, parents. Let me. One thing I wanted to clarify is, the Indian parents, if they were given the responsibility, or the son or daughter is open to them finding someone for them, then they would look within Indian strictly. But let's say their son or daughter they fall in love with a non-Indian, then most parents would be okay, because in that case, because they fell in love, and as long as he's doing well or she's doing well and they're happy together, they would be accepting of that. So that is one thing. But then in this case, the parents had engaged our services as a matchmaker, so they were also looking for someone Indian, and the girl was also as well. I think she wanted to bring someone her family would be comfortable with.
So when you're finding like partners for Indian clients as an Indian matchmaker,
Hmm.
how much of your personal experience as a matched arranged marriage person comes into play when you're deciding how to find compatibility between two people?
That's a really good question. I think personal experience really helps, because I at times I'm a soundboard when they're talking. Sometimes I'm a friend. Sometimes I'm just someone who can give them no nonsense advice. Sometimes, so I play different roles as a matchmaker.
Okay.
They know that I speak to other singles, so they know that I will tell it as it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat anything, and and they like that. Sometimes, all of us, sometimes we would rather listen to someone who's not our family, or someone who's not emotionally invested in us. We find it easier to listen to them, because that they won't be blinded by the love that they have for us. They would just tell it, be frank with us. So I play different roles, and then I also explain to them. I say, um, when you go into this process, don't think. I mean, we all like to have the romantic idea. There's this one person made for us. You know,
Okay.
in my opinion, there are a couple of possibilities who you could possibly gel with. So keeping the mind open, and the success
So there's no
matters.
there's no such thing as the one, you're saying. As an
I
Indian matchmaker is saying there's no such thing as the one. So how many ones are there?
why I say that, Jeff, you need to understand why I say that is because if we keep following that, thinking that there's just like one person, sometimes you close up your mind. You
Right.
think, and that one person has to fit every single checkbox.
Right.
It may not happen. Even with friends, it's not that you and I are only friends with people who are absolutely similar to us. We have friends in different spheres in our life, who are, similar to us in different ways. So I think when we go into the matchmaking process, we need to keep our mind open that, in the search for the one, we shouldn't miss out really good possibilities.
Mm.
So,
So if that's the case,
uh,
do given your experience as someone who was part of an arranged marriage yourself, if you could go back, right, what would you have changed, or if would you do it at all over again as an arranged marriage, given what you know now about the experience?
Oh, I think I would marry my husband all over again. So
Okay.
we often joke that it'd be nice to get married now because we know each other so well. So we would be more relaxed in the wedding rather
Oh, you
than
were tensed up during the wedding, I bet.
yeah, you just want because you're still getting to know this person. It's exciting at the same time though, because
Okay.
there's so much to discover with him. So
Okay.
you're dreaming of, oh, how are our experiences going to be? What are we going to discover about each other? So that curiosity is there as well. But I would do it all over again. But then I wouldn't. I have two daughters, so I would tell them, if you find someone on your own, that's awesome. That's fine. But if you need my help, I'm happy to help you.
And
So
what and
it's
what are they,
it's open.
how old are your daughters?
Yeah, they're 20 and 18.
So do you
So
ever like slide them photos of guys that like are in your database? Like, hey,
not yet. I think uh, they're pretty young. I mean,
how old were you when you
so
got
I don't.
married?
I was 21, but then that was my choice. So Jeff is thinking, her daughter is 20, and then she was 20 when she got married. But then
That means she needs
one
to meet
thing
her
that
husband now, because you're like you said, in a year from now, the marriage will happen.
if she meets someone now, that's great. But one thing about me was I was 21, but I was quite, what my family and friends used to say, mature beyond my years. So me and my husband and I are 7 years apart,
Got it.
but we never felt the age gap, So we were able to, meet in the middle.
Got it.
So I think age, though it sounds young, but by then I was pretty independent. If I was the one announcing in front of the parents, I like him, I want to get married to him. So I think I knew what I wanted
Wow. That's
at 21.
That's fascinating to me, because a lot of people in the Western world struggle to even know what they want, let alone find it. Right. And for you to be 21 years old in a culture where you don't even get to date your partner for that long, more than a day even, before you decide this is the person you're going to spend the rest of your life. That's a mature decision, a scary one for a lot of people, right? But it's a mature decision. And I saw some of these circumstances occur on the Indian Matchmaker show on Netflix, right?
Right.
You familiar with that show?
Yeah. So Indian Matchmaking was, a show I think we all watched with, amazement and, shock, enjoyment, mixture of emotions, because it's hard to represent a, very diverse culture like India in a show.
Yeah.
But I think, they wanted to give a slice of life, see how the arranged marriage works. But then one thing you have to remember is, they were showing, they mainly were working with one matchmaker. So, sometimes, you need to see different experiences, different
Right.
viewpoints.
So give me an idea of some of the things on the show that, although looked extreme, but was absolutely representative of like the Indian culture and how they court or match people for marriage. And give me an example of something from the Indian matchmaking show that was completely falsified, given what you know about your own culture.
I think one thing which was, okay, let me start with what is falsified. Sometimes they show the matchmaker going into the houses of the people she's helping, and looking, observing where they live and all. I mean, I haven't seen that much. Maybe some matchmakers do, but that looked a little odd to me. So
Okay.
I felt, why are they going and evaluating the people's homes inside the home? So that felt a little intrusive to me, but maybe that's because I've lived here for so long.
Got it.
But one thing which is true is, how there was one particular family that they showed, in which the mother was extremely, worried that her son isn't getting married or hasn't found somebody. This is something many Indian singles face. It's not only the mom, but just the parents being very, very worried.
Got it.
So, I mean, so they're very anxious that they need to, they think it's their responsibility to help their son or daughter find someone. So while that anxiety is, I mean, is okay, but sometimes it can really affect this Indian singles. They feel really pressured. They are like, we. Sometimes some of them are thinking, let me focus on my career. If I meet someone along the way, that's good. But then having constant pressure of parents can be hard,
Mm.
because parents don't. The parents I'm talking about who are here in the US, like me, we moved from India, so our experiences. We have not been here we didn't do our high school or
Right.
here, so we don't know how the experience was. So it's hard for us to put. We have to work hard at putting ourselves in their shoes,
Mm.
but their experiences are going to be different. Their pressures are different. Being in between two cultures is really hard.
So
So
so right
they,
now, if you're naming those as challenges as an Indian matchmaker in the Western world, like what is it about the Western world that makes it either easier or more difficult to match people of Indian descent for marriage?
I think one thing that's easier here compared to um, how it may have. I mean, India today is, I mean, quite comparable to how it's here, because people are dating longer before they get married. So that way, it's similar. But I think one thing which is harder here is, because the singles are trying to fulfill so many expectations. It's their parents, they have to fulfill their own expectations. It's really hard. And, so we may feel, oh, there are many Indians who live in the United States, but they're in different pockets.
Right.
How do you meet enough people of Indian origin to even to feel that, you met many, but you haven't settled, you made a good choice.
Right.
So, that's really hard, because back in India, of course, you are in India, so if one thing doesn't work, you have so many other choices. But here, when the pool is smaller, it can be very hard for them to find someone who they like, because always they're doubting, am I settling, or am I really happy with this person? So you're always questioning yourself. And on the other end, it doesn't mean if you have more choices, you necessarily make a better decision.
Right.
If you and
Right.
I were given 100 choices, we may just get confused and get overwhelmed.
Yeah, yeah.
So we may not make any decisions.
And
So
you'll be
in
unsure that
our
you made the right decision in the first place because there's so many things to choose from.
oh yes, so many things, and you're always comparing. So we encourage our clients, focus on talking to one person at a time.
Yeah.
So you may feel like you're losing time, but not really, because if you're talking to multiple people, you're comparing A with B, B with C, and then you're not happy at all.
Yeah.
So, and I feel the process shouldn't feel like you're not shopping around. You need to invest some time.
So in the Western,
In find.
so in the Western world, you're saying there's too many options, not just in the people that people
Mhm.
get to choose from outside the culture, and there's not enough options within the culture, right?
Right.
So that could lead to some
Yes.
frustration. And you're saying that in the Western world, Indians who are looking for matches to be married, they are having too many other distractions that need to be fulfilled for as a reference of compatibility. You're saying that as well? So in other words, like there's more things to that they're referencing as they need to be compatible with this, and that, versus in the
Right.
eastern part of the
Yes.
world, it's a little simplified, right?
Exactly. I think so, because they see their parents' relationship. They want to have something like that. So
Right.
for that, they need to bring someone who's acceptable to them. At
Okay.
the same time, the guy or girl has to fulfill so many other, they have their own expectations of a partner. And so it's really hard to find that person who would fulfill everyone's
Yeah,
expectations.
because
So
sometimes
sometimes,
what the parents is looking for is not always what the actual singles are looking for. Even though they want to appease the parents, they're also trying to appease themselves with the things that are really more Western that might not appease the parents.
Yeah, you would be, interested to know one thing. We have virtual events for parents as well, Indian parents. So it's
Okay.
more like a networking event. And
Okay.
we have had a dating coach come there and actually talk to parents, helping them with, strategies on how they could communicate with their kids. Because
Okay.
the intergenerational communication is so hard
Hmm.
because you each have come from a different background, right? So the dating coach actually, so when we told the parents we have a dating coach, so the first reaction was like, why do we need a dating coach? But so she was a relationship coach as well. So she gave them, some tips and tricks on how to, be give space to
Supportive.
their single at the same time, you know, uh, be close to them.
So even though there's so many challenges matching an Indian couple as an Indian matchmaker, what what is your process in finding actual compatibility? Because you can say, okay, this person's looking for someone who's good with the family, someone, who cooks, cleans, has a good job. Like, okay, this person's a good match. But how do you gauge, or do you gauge at all, the compatibility of the personalities, the compatibility of like the nuances of each person and how they will interact with each other? Do you do that? Like, how do you do that?
So how we do that is, let's say we have a new client who subscribes to our personalized service, the matchmaking service. So we send them a detailed form. It has questions. It's not only questions like what's your height and where were you born. Those things are okay, but we ask deeper questions like what are some deal breakers in a relationship? What are some nice to haves? So what's your idea of a successful long-term relationship? So we ask the hobbies as well, but we ask them some questions which are really subjective. And one interesting question that you would like, Jeff, that we ask them is on a scale of 0 to 10, 0 being most Indian, 10 being most American, where do you see yourself?
Oh,
And you will be,
themselves.
yeah, so you will be surprised. Someone who was born and raised here may consider themselves more Indian. And I've had people who have moved from India who consider themselves more Western. So it depends
Why do you
on the
think? Why do you
family
think
you
that
grew up
is?
in.
I'm sorry.
Why do you think? Yeah, there's a big range, Jeff, because it depends on the family that you grew up in.
Okay.
Let's say I moved from India to a part of the USA, which was predominantly, where it was not very diverse, let's say. So then, you grew up in a different environment, but there could be someone who was born and raised here, but in a part of the US, which, they're mostly interacting with only Indians. So then those kids consider themselves way more Indian.
Really?
Yeah, so we do that. After that, we have a video call with our clients. We are asking them more deeper questions, so it helps us understand their personality. Are they easygoing? There's some judgments we have to make, It's no person says, I'm an easygoing person, I'm a rigid person. No one says that. But we can understand, certain personality traits
You
when
have,
we talk
yeah,
to them.
you have ways of like identifying those traits on a subtle way without it being so blatant. So
Yes. And we all,
is there such thing as compromise in, like, is that a word used? Is that
Uh, so there's some, interacting with many singles. A couple of things I've learned. First, I've learned the millennial vocabulary. So I've learned many words. Second thing is I've learned some words they do not like. So I don't use the word compromise, adjustment, arrangedness. You'll be surprised. I don't like to use the word arranged. I say,
okay?
relevant introductions, and which is
So if you don't use the
pretty
word
much the same.
if you don't use the word compromise, how do you communicate compromise? Is compromising a thing at all in Indian matchmaking? Like,
Now, what I say is, there has to be a mutual give and take. So each person
uh,
is bringing something to the
that's
table,
that's very political.
and see, we all know it means the same thing. But I think
It's
those
not
are
as
words
triggering.
they've heard so much. Those are words they've heard so much, and sometimes they may look down on it. They think that adjustment means it's only one sided. Not
Right.
necessarily, right?
Right.
You both are two separate individuals, but the idea is to grow together as people, bring out the best in each other. So, so if that requires adjustment, so be it. But that's an important part of the relationship.
So
That's
how much are clients willing to pay, or are they paying for these services to be matched by a matchmaker of an Indian descent?
so yeah. So we have different subscription lengths, and people are ready to pay, couple of thousands for 3 or 6 months or 12 months. So it ranges. It starts from 1,250 and go up to more than $4,000. So it could be, but it depends how long they subscribe for it. But people are willing to do that because it doesn't require them to be on an app, or they don't have to be actively searching, because we are doing the search for them.
Yeah, I don't think that's a lot of money. I think that's a reasonable price if you want to sit on your couch and people sending you photos of people that's gonna marry you. Like, that's not a bad deal.
Yeah, that is true. So we don't. Good that you brought up that point. So we don't. It's like, let's say you were Indian and you became our client. So automatically, it's not like we're sending you. Each profile that we send you, we have spoken to that person. We bring in the human component of matchmaking. So we are able to judge, would this person, be compatible with Jeff, because this is his personality and this is her personality. So we're not just automatically, going to our computer, oh, there's a list of so many people we could think for Jeff. This is a personalized and a real, it's one-on-one, we are trying to see if we can find someone really relevant for Jeff, So it's every person who we present it's a well thought out process. So it's not, a lot of effort has been put into that. So you wouldn't just be getting photos, but we would be doing mutual exchanges of, your profile with someone else. And that wouldn't have your contact information. But if you both like each other and you see the profile and say, Anu, I'm interested in knowing more, and she says the same, then, I would connect you both. So then you can explore where that goes.
So let's say, right? Let's say, hypothetically speaking, I was one of your clients, right? You don't give out names. You don't give out like any particular information that is directly related to the individual, but you just give out qualities, right? You say, this person has this much success, this person has these qualities, and so on and so forth, right? All attractive qualities, all the things that are reflective of the thing that they say they want in a relationship, right?
Okay.
And let's say that is my profile, right? And then the person says, great, this is exactly what I'm looking for, right? And then you say, but he's not Indian.
So you're asking me what the reaction would be? What
the reaction would be is that a give and take? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
First.
Is that a mutual give and take, as you said? Huh?
Jeff is trying to trick me. Just kidding. So in that case, first of all, we wouldn't have any non-Indian profiles with us. So unfortunately, that wouldn't happen. But in the case we were having, let's say in the future, we expand to non-Indians.
Okay.
And I do not reveal whether the person is Indian or not. I think the client would be open to at least knowing more about you. So if we were having non-Indian profiles, I think the qualities would matter more.
You know what's crazy? I used to date someone who she's half Indian and half Jamaican, right?
Okay.
And she said that her parents were arranged marriage.
Oh.
But guess what?
Yeah.
Guess what? Her father was a doctor. That's why.
You find pockets of Indians all over. So you would have some Indians of Jamaican origin, and also arranged marriages are happening there as well. So
really? In Jamaica?
That's interesting. Oh, yeah, there are people of Indian origin there as well. So they would find someone similar.
Got it. No, I thought that was interesting to me. So I figured
Sure.
I'd bring that up. Listen, this conversation has been very invigorating, and I appreciate every ounce of it. You've shared so much. Is there any way that people can reach you? Do you have any programs coming up that people can take advantage of?
Sure, sure. I can. So our name of our company is Banyan Way. So Banyan refers to the banyan tree,
Mm-hmm.
and so the website is www.banyanway.com. BANYANWAY.com. I'll share that information with you, Jeff. And then, so yeah, we do have some virtual events for singles coming up in December and January. Um, so all the information will be on the website. So, but thank you so much for this opportunity, Jeff. And I hope it was interesting for you as
No,
well.
it was definitely interesting to me. Trust me, I'm taken aback by the amount of things that I learned from this because I'm not familiar with the culture. I've only heard things, but speaking to someone who's actually not just of the culture, but in the business of matching people who are of Indian descent, taking into consideration their cultural expectations, that's a wonderful thing for me. So I appreciate that. So if anybody wants to reach me, you can find me on IG at j.damisse. Or on Twitter, j_DAMISSE. You can also contact us at the Introspect Club's IG. It's Introspect_Club. That's for IG, Twitter, TikTok, everything, you name it. Also on YouTube. So you can find us on there. If you guys have any questions that you want us to answer for the show, please make sure to DM me at the Introspect, not the Introspect, DM me Introspect_Club for IG or j.damisse for IG. DM me. Also, if you are someone who, or if you know someone that has a unique experience or live a very unique life or interesting life that other people can learn from, please make sure you reach out to me. I might be able to get this person on the show. Anu, this was a very wonderful conversation. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you.